Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Stone Protocol podcast. I have a very good friend of mine here. He just got back on a pilgrimage, a podcasting pilgrimage to Salt Lake, right? Yeah, we call it pilgrimage.
There's some people that would call going to Salt Lake, going to Utah a pilgrimage for sure.
Yeah. And I recently also had your mom on the podcast, who is a healer and priestess. And I think you were a priest in training. So it's a younger gentleman. And it was so interesting seeing her in you and you in her and that light. And I want to make sure that I'm using the correct terms here, but like the light of Hashem, right? Shining through both of you. Seriously, like I'm being very honest with you. And that to me is beautiful. And then her talking about the community that she's building that you are a part of up in the mountains. Very fucking cool. And so I'm excited to talk about what your experience was on this pilgrimage, what this was like for you, what you learned as a podcaster, and just also reconnect and say hi and like welcome back.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying it in that term, like the light of Hashem shining through you, because that's
real,
bro.
You're
saying it in like my heart language.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I'm trying to also learn your guys' language, because last time I was saying different words that in your language means different things. And
right.
I'm really trying to
Right. So
I'm trying to show up.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Respect.
Yeah. My mom told me she had a great time on the podcast, and let's just jump in. I'll get into what I was doing in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
So we just opened our Salt Lake City location of the Let's Do podcast production company. So I went out there and basically reached out to a bunch of people in different Facebook groups, put a bunch of posts out saying, hey, I have this podcast, Shells and Shadows, would love for you to come be a guest. And I had people reach out to me in return and say, yeah, I'd love to do this. So I set up like 30 slots for people to come in and talk within a 2-week span.
Dude, so much.
And just for context, I've had my podcast going for a year now. I think up until this point, I've done 25 episodes. So I did more in 2 weeks than I had done in a full year.
So wild.
And
say that again, because I think for that to like sink in to the listener to understand like that, like just like, yeah. So
yeah, within the year that I've had my podcast, I've done 25 episodes.
Right. Which is normal for a podcast.
Right. Within the 2 weeks that I was in Salt Lake City, I did more than I've done in a year. I did 30 episodes. So like podcast,
pilgrimage, bro.
Yeah. It was like a podcast intensive. Yeah. There's so many angles that I can kind of try and attack this with, but let's start with just being a podcast host. I really got to learn and learn who I am as a host. I started to step in that identity because I was doing it, 8 hours a day for 2 weeks. I started to build that solid sense of what is my message. Found myself saying the same lines over and over again throughout each one and just solidifying it, not in a repetitive way, but in a clarity kind of way. Yeah. And so that's like my brand. But then on a people side, it was very nerve-wracking to go meet a bunch of strangers and go into very deep topics. I mean, my podcast, Shells and Shadows, is about talking to people about their darkest experiences and how they've used it to fuel their growth and their healing, and how it's brought out the greatest gifts that they have in their life that they otherwise wouldn't have found. Mm-hmm. And so going to a stranger and being like, tell me, what have you been through? What have you learned from it? And how are you helping others now? It's a very vulnerable thing. And I started to slowly become comfortable with that and holding that space for other people. It's intense, but it's very real.
So what would you say, what was some of the most standout learning that you had? What were some of the key moments? Because you can go into the situation as a certain person in a certain way, and you emerge out of it differently, in a different way. So what were some of those transition points?
Cool. For you? Yeah, 3 come to mind. Cool. I'll start with the first one, just as a healer and someone who's stepping into that identity. I had a woman who said to me, "Hey, I really have a lot that I have never shared before, a lot that I want to unpack. I want you to challenge me. I want you to push me to really open up about."
On the podcast.
Yeah, on the podcast about my past and the things I've gone through. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And so
Danger Will Robinson, right? It's like
yeah. And so we started having very surface level conversation. And then I asked her to go through an exercise with me. I've been learning a whole lot about IFS and parts work.
Yeah.
And she kept talking about this certain moment she had as a child. And I asked her, like, can we go in and confront that child? And can we see what comes up? And so I led her through an experience of confronting family members, different parts of herself, different emotions that were stuck in the body in different areas. And I didn't know what I was doing really, only from what I've done with myself and with my girlfriend and close friends when I've led them through those experiences. And I was kind of worried that I wouldn't be able to close the loop, right? Come back full circle. And that I just opened up this stranger's, full load of trauma.
Right.
And she was crying, and this was all on air.
Yeah.
And we were able to bring it back and have that moment where this younger version of herself, this little girl, was able to kind of find a home within her. And after the tears subsided, there was like that moment of peace. And so to do that for a stranger and to do it on air was a huge, huge moment for me as a healer.
Yeah, that's cool. Yes, that's really like standard IFS.
Yeah.
You find the part, have your protective parts move out of the way, have the part unburdened, and then bring it back into self energy, your heart. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, man.
That's cool.
Thank you. I'll say a second one. This is a totally different kind of experience. I hadn't realized that I had to have my own energetic boundaries during some of these conversations, because what was coming up was a lot of darkness. I mean, people who were homeless and addiction, sexual abuse, homicide survivors, suicide survivors, really, really heavy topics and experiences. And these people, I'm holding this space, I'm opening myself up. And so in one podcast, I was so open for someone and really bearing witness to their pain. And in a way, it kind of got turned on me. And I didn't realize what was happening. I felt like a pain, like a betrayal feeling. And I didn't take it personally. I sat with it for the rest of the day. It didn't really go away. I realized how important it is to also
feel extractive, like someone was like pulling energy out of you.
Not pulling it out of me, but just seeing maybe like out of everything that I may have discussed, seeing like a weak point and kind of hitting on it.
Oh, they then hit on you.
Yeah.
Like to use an aperture or opening in your field and then kind of like jamming something in.
It just wasn't. Yeah. It just, and I won't get into details because of this person specifically, but they kind of took over the conversation for a moment.
Interesting.
Using something that I didn't really want to go into, didn't feel was appropriate to talk about on the podcast.
Sure.
And again, it's a podcast where I'm very open to talk about everything and share my experiences, but what was brought up, I didn't feel was appropriate.
Sure.
And so I sat with that and I realized, wow, as much as it is important for me to have those experiences where I'm, guiding someone through their darkness and holding that for them, I also need to be able to have those boundaries and also step out of the studio and let the rest of that energy just kind of fall away from me and not bring it back home with me and really kind of like in a healthy way, cleanse myself of it.
Yep.
So that was a big lesson that I learned.
So what that's bringing up for me, it's interesting. So in client work, when I work with clients, and this will be your experience, I assume, as you continue to work with clients more, certain clients will try and take the reins of the experience, and then really naming that. And I will, and it hasn't happened for a bit, but I'll be like, oh, are you like, are you coaching now? And like name it. Like it feels like you are now wanting to be the coach here, and really name it. And in a podcast, it's like, if it's your podcast, and I've had guests on my podcast where then they try to kind of take power.
Yeah.
And I will kind of then name it as in like, oh, like, are you hosting now? And it's a very gentle way of being like, it's like that power dynamic and really naming that. Because a lot of people, in my experience, if they are feeling insecure, they will fall back into a role in which they try to take dominance over versus power with. Because you can still be solid in your power without trying to dominate. And then oftentimes if I'm on someone else's podcast and I don't feel like they're necessarily navigating the conversation in an interesting way, because podcasts should be interesting, I then, instead of dominating the conversation, I'll then show up more fully to then be able to have it be an interesting conversation that is still entertaining, but also substantive. And like navigating where that is, we have to, as you described, use the field of our own body of like, this doesn't feel right. Okay, why? Now what can I do?
Right.
Does that layer, I'm curious now from that framework, what did it feel like? What was happening in that experience with you, with this other person? You don't have to go into details, but like, which of those was that, or was it something different with this person?
Yeah, I mean, I might as well just like say
it's up to you,
share
bro. It's up to you.
Yeah. We were talking about his experiences in life, struggling with different things, and I was relating in different ways, and I drew upon a point of connection of something that I've experienced in my life, and it had to do with my experience living in Israel.
Okay.
And it was nothing to do with Israel. It had everything to do with that was my moment where I was looking over into the deep end of non-existence, I would say. Darkness.
Like suicide or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like an intense thing in your paternal family lineage, is my understanding.
Yeah.
You're talking to your father.
Totally.
Yeah.
It is. And that was a moment where I was facing that. And then I shared that. It was very open. And, you know, rather than kind of connect to that piece, because I was relating to him on that level too, he decided to start talking to me about like, well, like stuff about like genocide and apartheid state, and like, how do you feel about Israel Palestine, and throwing out all these things that he's seen on social media, these hot topics, keywords, where I'm talking about an experience,
your personal experience with
my personal experience. And I addressed this. I kind of paused the recording. I was like, hey,
did you actually have paused? You're like,
it's going to get cut out.
Oh, yeah.
And I met him with love. I really did. Yeah. But I realized, okay, yeah, boundaries are a thing too.
Yeah.
You know, being radically open and giving people all this space. Obviously, we want to keep our hearts open all the time, not let anyone close that. And I did my best to set a boundary while also keeping myself open. And it turned out to be a good ending. And he was very understanding, and didn't really know that there was anything wrong with what he had said.
Know.
He didn't really know.
He's just like completely socially unaware.
I just think it was more out of curiosity, but the
that
time
he said those things about genocide.
Yeah, like more so like, oh, are you aware that this, like, whatever? And I had to set the boundary, but I learned a lot from it. And after that, it didn't happen again in any of the podcasts. Yeah. So
what's interesting, what's coming up for me, so I talk a lot about having an open heart, right? And so I can visualize this. So we have an open heart here. I also have a bunch of like wings that come out from that, which are parts. So the open heart, I think you would call it like connection to Hashem or to God, right? And that is self-same. My heart, God's heart, all of our hearts, co-hearting as heart. My own unique manifestation of that. I now have parts from that. We can call them wings, call them whatever. Some of those parts are quite sharp. So like a Swiss Army knife, where it's like actually black. And those could be not bad, but like aggressive. It's good to have aggressive parts, and we kind of fold them in, right? They don't need to be always out, but we have those.
Right.
And so we can have that open heart, but that doesn't mean we let other people into our heart. If they're safe.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's protected. And so I only allow people into my heart that harmonize on that heart frequency. Otherwise, like, you aren't allowed to hear.
Yeah.
And I do that by sending out energy. So they have to like swim upstream, but it's then not swimming upstream if they are self-same with that. And then if I need to be defensive or protective, I then have these other sharper parts. And those we would call boundaries, to then exercise a boundary.
Totally.
And so if you come to a place where you're open with a person and you share something incredibly vulnerable, like talking about suicidal ideation or an entire lineage of men dealing with this very real thing and managing it well, like your father, like you, and then relating it to cross social political things of Israel, that's big. And then someone else then taking the opportunity to talk about like whatever weird stuff they have around genocide or lack thereof or whatever it is.
Right.
That's them not necessarily respecting that open-hearted place or being able to do that. I don't know, it's just what's coming up for me.
Yeah, totally. And I will say that experience that I had of my own like inner darkness, it could have been anywhere, right?
Sure.
Like it was the point
it's
of
not specifically about that.
Right. I could have gone to like I don't know, somewhere in South America and had an isolating experience in a new culture.
Or taking ayahuasca or jungle or whatever. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
When you talk about these, like this Swiss Army knife, these different parts that kind of come around in the heart, what I think too, and I don't know if you talked about this with my dad, but the king, magician, warrior, and lover.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Say more though.
Yeah. So when I think about that open-heartedness, I show up maybe as the lover and with that spirituality piece, the magician.
Yep.
But in that moment, I was being called to deploy the warrior.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not.
He's got swords, bro.
The warrior's fierce. The warrior has great might, but he acts from a place of love. He acts in the name of all of those other archetypes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. That's cool. So you said you had a third cool story.
Yeah. I have so many.
Dude, yeah, rock and roll.
So we talked a little bit about, on the last podcast, that experience that I had getting sent to a residential treatment center in southern Utah. Yeah. I reached out to one of my old therapists from there, and he said he'd love to come on the podcast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he came up and we had lunch together and we got on the podcast together and spoke for about 2 hours and really just unpacked so much, not just about the experience that I had there and that he had working there, but also trying to tackle this question as someone who's a former receiver of that sort of help and someone who's giving that help. How do we help people who don't want to be helped? And we were talking about it. It's very sad to discuss these things because I've lost friends who have either taken their own lives or have died to drug overdose because they just couldn't accept the help that they were getting. And it evolved into a deeper conversation, not of how can we help people who don't want to be helped? How can we help people who don't believe that they deserve help?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's a particular ailment, because if someone doesn't want to be helped, then it's a consent violation to actually help them.
Right.
But if a person doesn't, maybe they want help, but think they don't deserve it.
Right.
They are consenting to, I want help, but then there's a part of them from an IFS perspective that is not allowing that help in, but they still want it.
Yeah.
So then there's no consent violation there from my perspective.
Yeah. I mean, in the place where I was, it was all minors. So you didn't consent to going there.
Sure.
Your parents put you there.
Right.
Or the state put you there. But, that question carries a lot of sadness with it, because we were sharing stories of people that I knew and he knew that they wanted help. They wanted a better life,
but
and yet they couldn't accept it. And an idea that we touched on related to this was when you see yourself as bad, you see that you are maybe causing harm to other people, or you're doing things that you label as bad, then you start to associate yourself with the I am bad. Yeah. And in your head, bad people don't deserve good things. Bad people don't deserve help.
Well, there's a story that bad people deserve punishment. That is a story.
And I'm not saying that that's true, but that belief can cause you to turn on yourself, where you might want help, but you also have this belief that, well, I'm not doing good things. Maybe I'm not a good person, so I should be punished. I don't deserve that help, right?
And maybe actively I should be punished. And
as well.
I don't believe that, but that is a powerful story.
Yeah.
And from a power control system that wants people to either self-punish or receive punishment, that's a great fucking narrative from that evil perspective.
Right? And it can be so hard to break. And you either break it or it breaks you in a way. And we shared, stories, very tragic stories of people that I've known and he knows that it has broken them.
Right.
Very meaningful conversation, very full circle for me. And
have you felt in the past that you did not deserve help?
I think at times, I'd say the reason it was so miraculous, in my opinion, full circle, is because I didn't really see the end in sight when I was there. I didn't see that life could be better. And now here I am today, sitting with someone who did their best to help me and really did. And now we were tackling this issue together. I'm on the other side of things. Him and I are like on the same team now, saying, okay, how can we help other people?
Did you not feel on the same team previously?
When I was there, no. This was someone who had, he was a therapist. He had authority. The therapist could dictate like when we were able to go home or not.
Right.
So it was a very different experience.
Can I ask some clarifying questions about your experience there?
Totally.
Yeah. So I guess, and I don't know if he really dove into this when we talked about it before, so I literally don't know.
Yeah.
What led you to go there? What was like, maybe say a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, the experience I shared about having lived in Israel, the one that I shared with the gentleman on my podcast, that was part of the reason I was there. I never attempted suicide, but I had a history of self-harm. And
can you go into detail, or and not can, but do you mind sharing what that was, like cutting or?
Yeah, I had been cutting myself. I also just was destroying my life, not always in visible ways, but in a deeper way. My family life was awful. I didn't have a really good relationship with my parents. I often took out the anger or suppressed emotion that I experienced in the world out on my family and the people who cared about me most.
I believe you.
Yeah.
It is just that I'm surprised by that, because literally what I was saying before of like seeing you and your mother like radiate this love. And so, yeah, I mean, I believe you.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So there's a huge transition there. Do you mind sharing, like, how did that manifest? Like, how did that yelling, or like what was that like? Like, how did you like express that anger?
Yeah, I'd say I felt super helpless, and that came out through yelling. Never anything physical, just more so like breakdowns, outbursts. I was put on like 15 different medications in a span of 3 years.
Like SSRIs and stuff?
Oh yeah, and more than that, sedatives by a psychiatrist who I now look back on after studying psychology and understanding like the nature of these meds, didn't really know what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I was also a zombie.
Yeah.
Right, on 3 meds at once at one point.
Yeah.
Also isolated in this new country where I just didn't fit in.
And you're in Israel, living in Israel with your family.
Yes. And it was just I don't know the why behind it, but it manifested in the form of just I want an end to this pain.
Yeah, it sounds horrible, bro.
And I didn't see that end in sight. Yeah. And so I had a lot of anger towards my parents for the decisions they had made. And obviously things are very different now, as you've seen, but it was not an easy time.
So you were here when I just recorded a podcast, and I talked about people want to acknowledge the crown and kings and queens of the present without acknowledging the sweaty horses of the past. This is like case in point. This is a perfect example of this. So people can see a very open-hearted, literally, I was just talking to Amanda about you, of like, he's so joyful, he's so filled with love, he so radiates joy, he's like this bright shining light, right? That's true. That is you, right? That is how people see you.
Right.
That's how I see you. Like, that's a real thing. And there was this time in your life that was really hard.
Yeah.
Contemplating self-destruction. I see no end in sight. And so to acknowledge that, to understand that, and then to hold that up as an example for other people. This is what I went through. You see what I am now, right? I'm great. Be great. Own greatness. But this is where I was. That's super important. What in that vein would you want to like share with other people, or a version of you in the past that could then learn from that? Like, what would you want to express to show from this place and time of that deep, dark pain? What is important to
share about how to acknowledge it and move
even just what it was, so people can find other people who maybe resonate to what you're sharing, so they can connect to that and then feel that, and then connect to the progress that is made that you have made in the future after doing this work and having a podcast and like being a fucking cool person, being in a stable relationship with your girlfriend, being part of this really cool company. Let's do podcasts. Like, your life's going pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Thank God. And I think it comes back to what I was sharing earlier. And that's why it was so central to this podcast I had with my therapist, is that we often don't believe that we're worthy of receiving help and living a better life.
Sure.
And it's a sickness, really. I had a friend who took his life a little over a year ago, and the way his father described it, speaking at his funeral, was it's a sickness that takes over the organism and wants it to cease to exist.
Yeah.
Really.
We call this an unattached burden and or demon from internal family systems perspective.
Yeah. So,
Parasite.
I've looked at it in the eyes. I've moved with it. I've resisted it. I've taken it out in ways that I haven't wanted to. I've also found healing through it. I don't know how to say what it is. I don't know how to say why it happens, really.
Mm-hmm. You say what it feels like, though, your personal direct experience, and then people can connect to that feeling, that vibration.
Yeah. It feels like, and for me, what it feels like when I feel myself kind of reliving that for a moment, because I have moments throughout my day where I'm just doing nothing in particular, and I all of a sudden feel like I'm 14 again. I'm like, what is going on?
Yep.
You see that there is light in the world. You can acknowledge that, and yet you feel trapped in a bubble of sorts where you can't have access to it, and there's nothing to do but sometimes kick and scream,
suffer.
That's the feeling. It's not that you see that everything is bad, because we all see the good in the world, but it's that feeling of I can't access that.
So isolation, constriction, encasement. And do you feel as though there's some form of like feeding that something wants you to be there, external to you, like keeping you there? I'm not trying to put that in question. It's a question.
No, I never saw it that way. I did have a very eye-opening experience, though, after this podcast that kind of gave me a little bit more insight. After the podcast, I just had 24 hours of, I don't know what's going on with me. I realized that I had opened up a door to things that I hadn't talked about in such a long time, and I had no way of like moving that through me. It had come up, and I was just kind of sitting with it, just thinking about how like impermanent I am, and just darkness in general. So for all of this last weekend, I was kind of sitting in it, and it was that feeling of being stuck again. Then one of my last podcasts I did on Sunday, my guest said, "Hey, I'm going to this ecstatic dance thing. Do you want to come with me?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it. I've never done it before. Let's go." And I go into this room. There's no talking, no phones. There's a DJ. Everyone's dancing in any which way that speaks to them.
It's ridiculous.
And so I saw it as an opportunity. I said, okay, I'm going to 100% lean into this.
All in.
Just started moving in every way that I needed to. And close my eyes. And as I'm moving, I start to feel myself almost like there's like a being of light and a being of darkness, like the yin and the yang, with no like features other than just like a glowing outline of a human. And I feel that I'm interchangeably that light and that darkness. And as I'm moving with the music, I start to dance with this part of myself, this shadow. I'd spent 2 weeks talking to people about their shadow self and sharing these stories. And then I had this experience of my own, and now here I am. I'm moving with it. I'm dancing with it. And it was a very deep experience. And it was beautiful. Like I was so happy, even though it outwardly doesn't seem like a positive experience. It was. So that's the best way to describe the experience I had. How did now
it feel before whatever the negative feeling was, transitioning into now a dance of both, and then integration of that duality, and then I would assume into a transitioning into transcendence that is non-dual as well, and then we come back into duality because we're like humans having human experience. What was that? How did that transition feel in your body?
I felt a lot of resistance at first.
Makes sense.
Almost how I've felt when I've taken like psilocybin mushrooms and stuff starts to come up, and it's like, will I lose myself if I go into this? That was the experience. And I was fully sober. I had a little bit of cacao before,
But ecstatic dance, when you're moving energy through your body, it's very intense.
Totally. But I let go and I leaned into it. And when that happened, it was scary on my end, but I'm saying receiving end, but there's also just parts of myself. It felt like I was giving attention to something that wasn't allowed to be seen. And that's what kind of brought about the joy, not the blissful experience of harmony that I was creating, but that experience of I feel seen by all of myself. From there, again, throughout this, I had my eyes closed, I was moving, and then I started to feel the urge to keep my eyes open, and kind of that state that I had created kind of like offered out. My dance moves started moving outwards towards the people around me, right? Like just feeding off of and giving to that energy of everyone around me. So that wholeness that I had found within the self then translated into this desire to find that wholeness with the people around me. I think that's a metaphor for the healing journey in general, life, right?
Yeah. So having that experience, how now do you want to provide a container for others to be able to have that similar, not same, but a similar experience?
Yeah, I think it's going to start with the people closest to me. I think that's always a good place to start. Like I already, during that experience, was thinking of 3 different people in my life that I want to go bring them to something like this and have this experience with them and kind of share that. So that's one. And where that extent, again.
Is that like involved in static dance or like,
yeah.
Oh, cool.
I've seen Boulder has it. I've always kind of just brushed it off like, cool, whatever. But like maybe lean into that and bring other people, close friends.
And there's other things too. There's like Sundance, the Native American tradition. There's like, one of the things I would offer is not like ecstatic dance is not the only doorway to that.
Yes.
There's many modalities. Yeah. So that can be one of them.
Right. And I think it was just very happy feeling to know that, I've just added another hobby that is very fulfilling to my life, to my daily life. Beyond that, again, I come back to that feeling of empowerment I felt when I was able to walk that young lady through the experience of confronting her younger self. And I'd say the more I've had those similar experiences of not only experiencing it, but then offering it to select people around me, the more confident I feel to then allow that to extend outward, not only to people close to me, but to strangers, right? The average person who I'd hit up in Salt Lake City that then comes to my podcast. But then, the stranger becomes a friend.
Well, and maybe then and maybe certain strangers, maybe like this guy, become someone that you don't want in your field, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
And that's boundaries.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because I find a lot of time there are people, like certain people you just don't resonate with. That's okay. Like you don't have to have, but if they don't have that self same like heart harmonic, like you don't need to be around them. And as a coach, like you don't need to work with them either. That's all right. And there can be someone else who's better suited to go be with that person.
Yeah.
And hold space for and with that person. Yeah. So now as a podcaster, how do you view podcasting differently than when you went into it?
I'd say that I view the stories that people share with me as a gateway into seeing the collective human experience, because I found that there was a common thread that went through every single story that was shared, every person's experience that was offered and brought to the table in the show. And I started to disconnect from their stories and kind of feel into the underlying feeling of what it is like to exist as them.
Sure.
And that is shared amongst all of them. The common theme of the podcast, but also these stories was, hey, I've faced a lot of difficult things in my life, a lot of darkness, but it's been that darkness has been the seed planted in my garden that has then blossomed into beautiful fruits in my life. Yeah. And that was the common story. And it didn't matter who it was. It was, I told you I had people who had survived homicide attempts, suicide attempts, drug addiction, homelessness. And then I had people who were healers, breathwork practitioners, artists, cartoonists, karaoke DJs, comedians, CEOs, entrepreneurs, people in tech and AI, and everyone in between. And being able to find that shared piece of humanity within every single one of them was just a beautiful weaving together of stories into what we call the human experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. What would you suggest if someone then wants to try and find that thread in other people and in the interactions that they have with other people, how can people try to take that perspective in their own life when they interact with others or when they interact with themselves? I'm thinking of just the podcast that we just did that you produced, of like saying like thank you to a situation. So how can we then see that darkness or that hardship and then receive it as a thank you? Because it's really fucking hard when we're in it, right? I have a situation where it's right now, like it's hard for me to, I got an email in between these two things. I was like, oh my God, I just don't like fucking want to deal with this. But to take it as a thank you, right? And so to see that hardship, that is the seed that will grow into the fruits that will grow into the tree that will bear your greatest fruits in the future. How can you hold that in the moment when that seed is underground and is like burning a fucking hole in your heart? You know what I mean? Or feels that way at least.
Are you saying for yourself, within
Both.
yourself, or within others?
In oneself, when experiencing it in the world, it feels like you're being subjected to it instead of seeing it as a gift.
I think you have to see it in the most impersonal way.
Okay.
I would tell people, go find the most diverse crowd of people that you could possibly bring onto a podcast to have conversations with you and get to know them, get to know every bit about their darkness, their experiences that they've had. When you see that all of these sorts of people that are so vastly different from one another have all had this shared experience that you might have had as well, it becomes a lot easier to detach from it within yourself and say that this isn't personal. This is part of the human experience. And in seeing it in all these different people, you can actually find the beauty in it because it's storytelling. It's building that, and you're building that narrative of that hero in a way who's able to slay that dragon and come home changed. So yeah, I think if I were to have people who are all living in Boulder come on my podcast, which I have, a lot of the guests on my show have all been from either Boulder or Denver with similar interests, different, obviously. Like you and I are quite different in many ways.
Are we?
I'd say so.
Oh, okay. I'm curious now.
Well, no, I mean, that's a good thing,
Sure.
I think. But to go to a new place with new people and surround yourself with those who haven't had similar life experiences, it can give you a lot of perspective about your own life. And it's humbling.
Cool. I'm curious now. I don't know. I'm just curious. How do you think that we're different? I'll learn ways in which you view me and yourself through the lens of your perceived difference. Well, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah, no. Again, I'll say that's on the level of what is my story, what is your story, and there's obviously overlap in our interests, stories, missions, but that aspect of like identity, which is we hold to it, and that's how we show up in the world, and it's real. We have to acknowledge it. I'd say, for one, we have a lot of overlaps in our beliefs of like religion and spirituality, but they're very different. I take most of what I believe from the Torah and derivatives of it. And we find common ground on it, but I don't think that that's where you approach it from. And that's totally fine.
I take my perspective on spirituality from my own lived experiences that can have harmonic resonance in books and in what other people say. But I drinketh of the cup myself, and I taste this is like old English. I taste that, and then I analyze that through my own direct personal experience instead of having an external reference point as my compass and foundation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Another thing that came up last time we spoke is how we view our role in what we call God.
Okay.
And you were saying this idea, I am God, right? And I was challenging that in a way. I think we view that differently.
Sure. How do you view it?
Oh, we'll open this back up.
But this is a good. This is a good point. Yeah,
it is good. I've been thinking about this a lot since
Apparently.
we spoke. I do believe we are one with God, and that we have a spark of the divine within us, and that it is part of this larger collective that we've only been made to feel is separate because that's how we have
like locked in a box in which we don't have that light, the one that you were saying before.
And that's part of existing, because if we were fully absorbed into what is God,
then we're just one.
We also, you can get to that level on earth, but
regain it,
also regain it, but also part of having a body and having this separateness is being detached from it.
Being in a shell with a shadow.
Right. So that's why I don't think we can say, I am God. I can say that I am one and part of God. Mm-hmm. I also think that it is almost diminishing what God is to claim that anything that is a mortal being can fully be God.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's like fully connected to. Mm-hmm. So let's say my heart, not me specifically, but in this analogy, is God. And then I have an appendage that is an arm. We'd call this like the oversoul. Mm-hmm. And then let's say I have multiple arms and multiple hands on each arm. This would then be like a soul cluster. And then there is a finger. And then the human is the fingernail. And we trim it off, right? And it grows new. Now, if you damage the fingernail is going to grow differently. But ultimately, it's connected to God. Is the finger not part of your body? It very much is part of your body.
Right, yeah.
But it's very different than your eye. It's very different than the other finger. It's very different than the heart. But it's connected to. And that blood that flows from the heart flows into the finger. Now, the nail could be seen as different, the human aspect, right?
Yeah.
There's a product of. Still part of the system. And so we are like my body, I, Lightstone, am the entire system. But I have parts like an IFS. And each part is still part of that system. It's not the totality of the system, but it's intrinsically connected to and has harmonic resonance with. And we can have them be harmonized as one thing.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It reminds me of this teaching that I read in Judaism where it compares, it's just giving an analogy of the Jewish people and saying that, well, the collective of the Jewish people is like a body. Sometimes someone's role in this life is to be the toenail, sure. and in others is to be the tip of the ear.
Yeah,
they all serve different functions, but no one is less essential than the other.
Sure,
they all make up this collective human body.
Yeah.
So yeah, on like a bigger level too.
And then we would all be one with the heart of God. God is the entire system, and not to say I'm everything as the finger, but then the finger is connected to all of it. That's how I view it.
Okay, that's a lot more clarifying. Last time, I don't think we got to that point, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, you also returned from a pilgrimage, so you have a new perspective too, and maybe my ability to present my internal understanding has also increased in that time, and maybe we just had more time to focus on it. But that's why I asked.
On it.
Yeah. What other ways do you think we're different? I'm just curious. Yeah, I just love it. It's an interesting point of conversation.
Yeah.
And we can talk about something else too if you want to.
No, we can keep going with this.
My point is, I think that we're more similar than you may think.
Right. But my point was the differences that people have often break you out of your own sense of self, because if you're always surrounded by people who are similar to you, this identity is constantly being affirmed because you're interacting with people who are the same way.
We call it siloed.
Right. So when you interact with people who are very different from you, you have to connect to that deeper piece. Sure. Otherwise, it turns into fear. You fear that which is different. We've talked about that too. Yeah. So,
but you can fear what is different.
Right. Yeah. You can, and you have to safeguard against that.
Particularly like the difference between male and female. I love that difference.
Yeah.
In the female.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Well,
I just want my face right up in it.
Well, why don't you share with me that what your experience has been like very recently?
Sure.
Reconnecting in a new way to that difference between male and female. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, what's been new is being in this new relationship, experiencing a female that is a peer. It's been very different. I think I've dated a lot of women recently who have been younger. And so they've not been a peer. And even this person that I'm dating, Amanda, she has said in many ways, like, you are more advanced than I in certain things. It's true. And her are more advanced in other things. For example, she has a master level understanding of astrology. I do not. I have master level of understanding of other things. And so to have a difference that is complementary, but that is not, when you date someone who's 10 years younger than you, that's a big difference of just life experience, right? But when you date someone who's only, 3 years younger than you, also has 2 kids, I got a kid, also is doing quite well in her life, there's a level of power there and solidity there and clarity there where there is profound difference of perspective, but it's not a difference of like ability, and to then be met on more equal terms.
Right.
And then for me, and I talked about this with her a lot last night, to be in that space and then be seen from an equal but opposing, opposite, not bad, but female is, it's on the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
Perspective. I am seen on a level playing field. I'm seen instead of being seen from up like that, from a young, like a younger woman, or even some would say a girl in their, 20s. It's a very different perspective to be seen that way. And then a person can then choose to be vulnerable in that space or not. I choose to be vulnerable in that space. And then I've then allowed my younger parts to like emerge out and acknowledge the ways that they feel just the magnitude of the situation. Not even afraid, but just the like, oh my gosh, it's a lot. And it is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my perspective.
Yeah. What I heard you saying there as well about she has these parts of herself that you may not have, and you have these parts of yourself.
Well, literally, she has body parts that I don't
have. That as well. But like in terms of what your personality and your strengths, you have, parts that she doesn't have. And it's like, well, a positive charge and a negative charge, one is not better than the other. Sure. They are both necessary. So it's almost as like when you find that person, they bring that which you don't have, and vice versa. Yeah. And it's like a puzzle piece coming together.
I agree. I think that that's a similar perspective also in this notion of God, where it's a different perspective and a different position to see self. And I mean, big self, God's self, right? And so it's like if we are all that one, eventually at the core and heart of whatever that God entity is, you want to call it Hashem or something else, that big thing. But then we have these like parts, these tendrils that are looking at ourself and each other in different ways. It can look back at the heart, right? At God itself and find self-same resonance, but then also look like this and then look at each other and then play, have fun.
Right. And almost like looking at that other part can cause you to then follow that trail up back to the heart, which sometimes only happens in moments when you are looking at another part.
Right.
It's like seeing yourself in someone else, but also seeing this bigger self in someone else.
In Hinduism and in yoga, we call that namaste. The divine light in me sees and acknowledges the divine light in you as a reflection that is also the divine light in me. Yeah.
But also seeing the vastness of that divine light through you.
Yeah. And acknowledging that there's difference, but that same divine light would be the namaste.
Yeah. People like I've heard people ask the question, well, if God is all powerful and this great being, then why is there a need to create the world?
For fun.
Well, we are in a unique position where we have that separate sense of self, and that brings about different things than we would not be able to do or create or experience if we were not in this position, if we were absorbed back into the collective of all that is.
Yeah. When you're everything, there's nothing to play with.
Yeah.
You're all of it. Yeah. So then the question is well, why is some of that play so very horrible, a la Jeffrey Epstein? We get into free will. And then also, if you think about like a video game or Dungeons and Dragons, sometimes you need a dragon to slay. Sometimes you need an enemy to push against. And so it's hardships. And then it's how do you rise to the occasion? How do you find a group of other people? Ben Duffy. How do you find people like Will Carr, people like me? Say, wow, okay, we're going to get Will Carr to be elected governor so he can make real change. He can do that. And then president of the United States. So we as men here together can end child abuse in our government, because apparently it is rampant. It's big. And then that's the motivation. You can turn that into a game while acknowledging the deep level of suffering that other people are doing. Yeah. And then that, I think you can find joy in meeting, something that your father talks a lot about. A man with a strong enough why can endure any what. Right. And that's the seeds that we plant. It grows into a tree that then bears a good fruit.
It's right here on the back of the Let's Do Podcast hoodie.
There it is. What does it say?
It says, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow."
There it is.
Yeah.
What's your why?
What's my why? Oh man, that's a big question.
I didn't know that's on the back of the hoodie. That's great.
Yeah, we have a bunch of different designs and t-shirts. We'll have to get you one.
I love it. Make it black. You just gotta be black. Black with white lettering.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll sport it.
What is my why? Just it's one of those questions where I start to think about it and I just start to like spin out because it just gets like bigger and bigger.
So Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, the founder of Naropa, his literal lineage is called Crazy Wisdom. So this guy's crazy. He's done a bunch of weird shit. I'm not like saying Trungpa's like this amazing whatever, but there was wisdom there and a lot of other stuff. One of the great pieces of wisdom that he had was first thought, best thought. So you're asked a question, what immediately pops in your head? It's very like Zen, like, you know, and so what is your why? Boom, immediately answer and like blurt out whatever you got. Like, what is your why?
My why is to help other people transform their darkness into beautiful fruits that nourish their life and other people around them to help them enjoy the beauties of life.
That's great.
Been given,
yeah, that's perfect. I love that. Me too. Like, yeah, that's great. And then you break it down how you're going to do that, and it's like you do it from your experience.
That's the how, right?
Yeah, that's the how. Yeah, that's cool. That's a great why.
What's your why?
Very similar to yours. For me, it's very specific and ending parasitic predation on planet Earth currently. Yeah, and ending parasitic predation. So you can be a predator, but you don't have to actually cause harm and be parasitic. And I've created it's called Guardian Ethics. I've written an entire book on this.
How do you, because we're all connected and the fingernail is also connected to the heel, right? And everything else. How do you safeguard against that energy manifesting through you?
The predation?
Or the energy, whatever energy is associated with it.
Yeah.
Right. How do you navigate that to make sure that you, who has that mission, is also kept in check from that energy, keeping it at bay?
Rules are a good thing. Rules are kind of guideposts and signposts on how we can live from that heart space. And so I have what is called Guardian Ethics. It's really funny. When I invite people over into my home, my apartment, I literally have posted rules on the door and I show everyone, these are the rules. And it's called the fridge version. It's a page, 3 columns. I fit a lot on one page of like, these are the rules of engagement. And I enforce them. I'm bigger than you, right? Like, welcome to my home.
And they throw you out, literally.
And it literally says, if you don't follow these rules, you will be ejected from the space. Like for real.
What are the rules?
They're great. No yelling, no consent violations. If you don't want something, say stop. I do not consent. It fucking lays it out. It's built off of years of coaching, years of living, right? And that's then a distillation of a larger document that is below that people can read if they want. And that's a distillation from an entire fucking book that I wrote that will be published at some point. I'm in the process right now of actually like describing it to Amanda. She's like, I've never encountered anyone who's ever done this before. I'm like, I know, I don't think they have. It was channeled on a lot of very powerful psychedelics.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so to answer your question, you talked about you don't have to have everyone in your field that you don't want to have there. So I find that heart connection, that heart resonance. Can that person meet me in that heart space? If they can, then we have that harmony connected to God.
Right.
And if they have that connection to source, to God, to Hashem, whatever you want to call it, then we're brothers or sisters or whatever. Or in the case of Amanda, lovers. Love it. And so when we created the container of our relationship, I've like basically not shut the fuck up about how I view sex on my podcast, just like signal out into the universe, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. We didn't actually, within the time period of us like entering into the relationship, have sexual interaction for a very long time within, although yes, a short time, but like long time in that time, it was not sexual energy, all heart resonance. We were making sure that we had that and could maintain that very powerfully, and then did. Because everything else needs to surround around that and be built on that. Like, I know I'm good at sex. She's like a sexological worker, helps women unlock their sexuality. She knows she's good at sex. So we're not worried about that. But if we don't have that heart connection, everything else is moot. And if we can't hold one of the most beautiful things that she told me, our kids are playing. We're both like, at that point, I know that she is not with a boyfriend. Like she's like testing my kid to see how like family goes. And she looks at me and it's like only a woman can do this, like channels like divine feminine wisdom. Like her head like tilts a little bit. She's like channeling. She goes, how do you deal with conflict resolution when there are children around? And it was like such a beautiful, like
oh boy.
but that's like the best question that you can ask someone, because everyone who's been in a relationship with children, shit goes down with your partner. How do you deal with that? Mm-hmm. You don't fucking yell. You're not supposed to yell in front of your kids. That is evil, right? You have energy comes up. What do you do? And I said, I have a protocol for this. Literally, I have a protocol. It's in the list on the fucking door. And I reminded her. She goes, well, I don't remember what was written there. Great. Let me show you. She goes, well, we're not having conflict. I said, okay, we'll get mad about something. I'll show you. I took both of her hands. I said, hold my hands and just breathe through physical touch. Breathe into my heart and look into my eyes. We don't need to say anything. Just breathe. Just breathe. Eye contact and touch and breathe. Feel the energy up and then self-regulate. And then once we are regulated as a pair, there's kids running around. We had 3 little girls. Just running, playing with cats, doing random shit. Breathe. And then I said, then we table the conversation of whatever the argument is until after the children go to bed. That's my protocol. How does that sound? Her entire nervous system went, and that's when I won her over.
Well, I feel my nervous system calming down just by hearing that. Because when that question comes up, it's like, like that, like tension, right? Yeah. And then like hearing how you're describing that experience of breathing into the heart back and forth, you can just, even hearing that, like I feel like the ease that is experienced in that moment.
Yeah. And that is the fruit of a tree that was a seed of profound darkness
for you
from my past.
Yeah.
Correct. Of growing up, and Ben Duffy talks about his experiences, having a mother and a father that argued all the time. I had that similar experience. He goes into great detail about it. I don't know if that was your experience, if your parents fought. Doesn't seem like they're, it's not the vibe I get.
Yeah.
Right? Mine did. And then that carried over, not in my first marriage. My first wife and I, we didn't argue much until we did, and then the whole thing blew up. But my second wife and I, we argued almost every day. Wild. I was not the common denominator there, but I still had that experience. And so having that experience, I had to create systems to make sure that didn't happen. That person couldn't meet me in that place because she was the common denominator. She had conflict in all of her romantic relationships due to her childhood trauma that she did not resolve. That's her thing. But I got a system. I got a fruit out of that tree that I can now share with other people.
Yeah, that's great. And when I hear you talking about that, there's a total reality in which you weren't able to come to that place. And that darkness consumed you in your relationships. And that goes for everyone. And when I said earlier that it was miraculous to be sitting across from my therapist and having that conversation with him. And then it's miraculous to, you see the way I am with my mother and father today. Like it was so far from that. Like not only are we great, but we're working together in harmony in our whys, right? That is why I use that word miraculous, because there's a total reality in which that never happened. And it did. And for you as well, like there's a reality where you let that consume you and your relationships were just marked by that arguing and tension, right? Yeah, but it's not that way.
You and your mom, and this is a compliment, you guys are channeling that same love. And it's wild. It's like a conduit. It's like two conduits for that same love, like 2 fingers on that same arm.
Right.
And like, I feel so clearly.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, because I've always felt more of that with my dad. And I think it's just a father-son thing in a way, but you having said that multiple times over the last week, I'm able to recognize that more. And it's like things in my head clicking, my mom and I have never done a podcast together, which is crazy. I've done I've done 10 with my dad.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so we're like, let's do it. Let's collaborate here. So
that's
cool.
I
appreciate it.
Yeah. It's so funny. So when I first met your mom, I was with Yavel. We were at Dushanbe. Are you familiar with the story? Did you hear this?
I was on the phone.
Yeah. And we were talking about you.
And I was talking about you to my mom.
It's crazy. Yeah. And we were saying very nice things.
Yes.
But yeah, so everyone was talking about each other, and then your mom walks in. Your mom is very striking. She's a beautiful woman, very striking presence too. Just like, here I am, like boom, And I like kind of turned up like, who the fuck is this? Like didn't realize we were having the magic convention. Like I thought I was the only magic person in the room. Like no offense to you, Vel, but he's very business. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not like a wizard. At least that's not how he manifests in the world, right?
I get it.
And so she walks in, and then he tracks her and goes, "Oh my god!" And so it was this whole thing, and we were all talking about each other simultaneously, and there was no other way to honor that other than honoring. Again, exactly what I'm saying, that we are all connected to and part of that divine light of God, Yeshem, whatever words we want to use.
Yeah. That's awesome. I forgot about that story just because so much has happened in my life since.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we, I don't know, close out and land this particular spaceship, what feels really valuable and relevant from this learning of this I would call like a pilgrimage that you've had to do this thing. You've now returned home with all of this information, professional and personal, and like transformation. What feels, I'll put it this way. Let's say you only had 3 minutes. This is the last thing you were ever going to say to anyone ever, and you're going to have a heart attack and die. What would you say? No pressure.
Wow. I'm going to use that principle that you shared of just like the first thing that comes to your mind. So the last thing I would share in general about that experience.
I don't know, man. It's up to you. You got 3 minutes.
Just like what's going on.
2.5 now. No,
all right. I would come back to the same statement that I repeated after every podcast. And I was doing it in the past, but I was doing it very intentionally when I was there. Is that if you change one person's life, it's as if you've changed the world in its entirety.
Because we're all God.
Yeah. Well, because a human being is a world in and of itself. Yeah. And if you change that, so when I'm coming back into life here, I'm looking for that. Where's that one person? Mm-hmm. Not let me impact as many people as possible, but let me go through that one person at a time, and that will have an outward effect on other people. And I also come back to the thing that I shared earlier, where having that experience of really seeing through other people's stories to the root of their experience and seeing how that appears in all of these different people, myself included, you included, I feel really called and would also encourage other people to just continue to say yes and branching out to other people, having new interactions that you otherwise wouldn't have because of that perceived separateness. That will change your life. If you say yes to every little inclination to make a connection with someone that is a stranger, then that stranger then turns into a friend. Can. But even if they don't, you've acknowledged, again, that idea like namaste, like I see you and you see me, even if it's for a moment, and call it a friend, call it just a brief interaction. We're all moving on this earth together, and you've acknowledged that fellow traveler.
I love that.
So
what I will add to that is that I've been obviously talking to Amanda a lot in the past couple of days. One of the things I said to her, and I'll say it to you, some of those people, all people, are eventually one day will be friends. God, right? We're all going to come back to the heart. But some of them are frenemies, right? And they are very convincingly not friends. Like Jeffrey Epstein. It's very convincing, right? And we have to learn that dance. How far away? What's the appropriate barrier that we have with true predation, with true parasites? Because you get too close to a parasite, human body, I mean, you get Ebola, that's real bad for you, right? And so what is the spacing that we want to have? How close to our heart do we want to allow other people to be? And so there's discerning wisdom. Someone like you, someone like Ben Duffy, someone like Will Carr. I want you guys very close to me. I trust you, right? Trust. And trust is like that self-same connection. I feel that heart resonance. And what I've had to learn in my life is not everyone is safe in that way because they're not safe in themselves yet. Like Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
That guy seems like a real fucking asshole. I don't want him close to me.
Right.
I want him under a magnifying glass. And not like the magnifying glass that he used to torture some young girl that's on the internet. but a magnifying glass to understand him better. So we can find that level of predation out in the world, analyze it, isolate it, help it heal, but certainly have it not harm others, including me. And so I think that what I'm hearing in the situation where you described with that guy, who you shared something very vulnerable, you opened your heart. He was very vulnerable. And then he took that opportunity to do whatever, talk about Israel and Palestine or whatever, right? I also have those questions about Israel and Palestine. So what did I do? Sat down with Yuval and I go, bro, I wasn't there. You were. What was your experience? I asked questions.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know. I hear the propaganda that people tell me. I don't know. So I'm going to ask people that have been to Israel that I trust, like Yuval. I don't think he's lying to me. I think he's telling his exact experience. Is there also bad things that happen? Yeah, sure. Our government fucking kills people. Our government, CIA, is doing horrible things, a la Jeffrey Epstein. But asking those questions from that open-hearted place. And others who can't do that, I don't think deserve to be close to us. They've not earned that right.
Yeah, I will say that curiosity that you bring to the table in your approach, I feel that it really helps the person detach from this fixed story they have and this, like, their stake in the game, really, where if they can have curiosity and wonder in a way, well, what's really going on here, then you can actually be open to the answers that you might receive. I also think it's important to note that above all, I trust God. And when I see someone that may be encroaching on my energy, it's important to know that this person does not have the power.
Yeah.
Right? They are just a fingernail in the heart that's beating blood to that fingernail is that which is fueling everything that exists. Yeah. So when you see bad things happening in the world, when you see, people in your lives that are kind of coming in on your energy and trying to like suck it from you, right? If you put your trust in them, then you've given them the power. You've acknowledged that they have this authority over you. But if you recognize that they're just part of God and you put your trust in God, then you've taken that power away. Not because
they never had it in the first place.
Right. And it's not in a way of like shutting them out, but in a way of acknowledging that, oh, this is really cute. I see what's going on. The creator is moving through you in a way that is appearing hostile.
To give me a gift.
Right. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it. So even when we, like, I've heard you talk a lot about like demonic things and dark entities. I have it's very important for me to establish a line there where if I'm giving something real form in the world, if I'm using my mind to acknowledge and give it real identity, real power, I'm drawing it down and saying that I actually believe more in these things than I do in God. Where if you just view it as the concealed presence of God in our world in his hidden form, then you take the complete power away, the autonomy away from that which appears as evil. Yeah. That's my approach.
I agree with what you're saying. I do. Yeah. I really do. So I'm not pushing back on it. I agree with what you're saying.
Go for it.
But I want to really preface that. So I agree with you. And it is also very in line with the wisdom tradition that your mother teaches as well. She said something very similar on my podcast, and it's reaffirmation that you are a priest within this lineage, which is a good thing, a good thing. And the only additive that I would have to that, in agreement with you as your friend and brother, is that they are very convincing in the ways that they hurt people, like small children. And so there is a duality there. I agree with you completely. And someone at some point needs to step in and stop them from hurting children.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I believe that we have to use our thought, speech, and action to actually make change and reveal God's light in the world. We are in an active role. That's not a passive way of saying, I'm going to go sit on a mountaintop and meditate it away. Yeah. But it is acknowledging where the power lies. And with that as your basis, now I have the power to know what is really at play here to then take action.
I agree with you.
Right? Action is key. That's why we are separated in a way, that separate perception of self. We have the ability to take action in the world. As the fingernail kind of just walks around on the little table, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, I look forward to watching you guys coalesce your community and share this. Yeah, and channel that same light. Seriously, I'm excited. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. So when will these new episodes drop on Shells and Shadows?
They're going to be dropping twice a week for the next like 3.5 months.
Okay, cool.
Just going to be putting them out. And yeah, pick a few if you're listening and really give a listen to those people's stories. Like really bear witness to what they're sharing and, find that peace within you that it touches.
All right, cool. Bro, I love you, dude.
Love you, bro. Thanks for having me on again. And
for the second of many.
Yeah.
The second of many.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll see y'all later. See you next time.